Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Let's Talk, the series where we talk about Marvel movies every other month. This is your friendly neighborhood Birdman, and today we're talking Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts picks up a little after the events in Brave New World. The story centers on Yelena, the new Black Widow, and her search for meaning in her life. She's doing clandestine missions for DeFontaine, but she wishes to be a hero in the spotlight. Meanwhile, John Walker, Ghost, and Taskmaster all have missions of their own, and in crossing paths with Black Widow, discover a sinister plot centered around a man simply known as Bob. Now, before you assume this is just the Suicide Squad with Wheaties product placement, I think the superficial resemblance stops there. While Thunderbolts does follow the ragtag team of misfits on a government mission formula, this isn't a copy-paste job. This one's got heart. And not the Marvel Phase 4 kind of we swear this matters heart, but actual emotional core kind of heart. And I'm happy to say that I actually enjoyed this a little more than Brave New World. So, what's Thunderbolts about? Well, it's about broken people. Yelena's dealing with grief, guilt, and the overwhelming need to feel needed. It's about John Walker wrestling with the fact that he's not Captain America and never will be, mainly because he's an asshole, and learning that maybe that's okay. And then you've got Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, basically the island of misfit toys all working through their trauma in wildly unhealthy, if not endearing ways. But like most great team-up films, it's not the mission that matters, it's the people doing it. Yelena, in particular, is the standout. Florence Pugh continues to be the MVP of Marvel's new generation, and she gives Yelena this really nuanced mix of sarcasm, anger, and sadness that makes her feel like a real person and not just a vehicle for punchlines. Her dynamic with Bob is surprisingly layered. It's not romantic, but it's like a platonic kinship. Two people who have seen too much, been through a lot, and don't quite know how to live in a world that pretends everything's fine. Bucky, by the way, gets some of the best writing he's had in a long time. Gone is the gruff, I'm fine, background brooding, and in its place is a man trying to actually move on. His arc here is less about redemption and more about making a life post-Steve Rogers, and it works. David Harbour is this film's MCU guy. He brings the humor and levity in otherwise tense moments. I thought other than Florence, David's Red Guardian is the best character in the film. He makes you laugh one moment and in the next he's tugging at your heartstrings. I think he's going to be a fan favorite, and I really hope David sticks around in the MCU a long time. Let me say this now. This movie doesn't reinvent the wheel, and it knows that. What it does do is dive into these characters' emotional baggage and actually do something with it. That's what elevates it above your average Marvel ensemble flick. These characters aren't just here to quip and shoot things. They're here to heal, even if they have to bleed for it. The action is solid, nothing mind-blowing, but it gets the job done. There are some really creative team-based fight sequences, especially involving Ghost, who finally feels more than just a cool gimmick. And while the CGI during the third act dips into that definitely looks unrealistic territory, the choreography and editing mostly keep things grounded. The cinematography is serviceable. This isn't the best movie I've seen all year, but it's not the ugliest. I will say I don't think this movie requires an IMAX viewing, so don't be like me and pay $1 million for an IMAX ticket that isn't Sinners. The pacing is mostly fine, though I will say the second act does sag a little under the weight of all the emotional flashbacks. The film occasionally forgets it's a Marvel movie and dips into HBO miniseries territory, which isn't bad, it just slows things down when you kind of wish someone would throw a shield through a wall. Thematically, this is Marvel digging into the cost of heroism. These aren't gods or geniuses or billionaires. These are broken soldiers, orphans, weapons, people who were used, discarded, and now have to decide who they are when no one's pulling the strings anymore. And that's where Thunderbolts shines. It's a story about taking the pieces of a ruined past and building something that suspiciously looks like hope. And while the character work is strong and the emotional beats do land, the plot itself is kind of fine. The film's main antagonist sort of hits the brakes, and I'm being vague to avoid spoilers, and some of the characters don't get as much time as they deserve. Looking at you, Taskmaster. I was also hoping the film would be slightly more grand than it was. It mostly takes place in a couple of locations, the first of which I thought they stayed at way too long. But for those of us who've been following these arcs since Winter Soldier or Black Widow, this movie hits a sweet spot. It's not perfect, but it's grounded, heartfelt, and dare I say it, mature. Thunderbolts is Marvel doing a character study inside a superhero movie. It's moody and occasionally meandering, but it's also honest, intimate, and emotionally satisfying. It's the kind of film that might not blow your mind, but might stick with you longer than you expected. Trauma is the villain, teamwork is the cure, and somewhere in the middle of all that pain, Thunderbolts finds its soul. B+.